Okay, so this past week was National Marriage Week. Every February 7th through the 14th, the nation is supposed to be celebrating the institution of marriage. And I don't know about you guys, but most of the married people I know, they don't even want to celebrate marriage. Before God gave the Ten Commandments or put the government in place, He instituted marriage. And it should be important to us as Christian women to know what's going on with the state of marriage in our country and also know what we can do to help build it up and protect it. I want to make you guys aware of the decline in marriage that's happening in the United States right now and encourage you to be part of the solution by choosing marriage over cohabitation and supporting marriage through other personal or legislative channels. Today, I'll be analyzing the problem, examining the significance, proposing my plan of action and its solvency, and then looking forward to two worlds, one where marriage continues to decline and the other where it improves. So the quantity and quality of marriages, like I said, in the United States is declining, but before we go any further, I want to make a distinction. God designed marriage perfectly, and so when you hear me say things like marriage is failing, I'm not at all insinuating that God's plan is failing. Rather, I'm insinuating that because of the fall of humanity and because of sin, marriage has become complicated by our sin. Marriage still works, and it always will because God designed it that way. We are the ones who are at fault. So, is there really an issue here? I mean, we're at Liberty and it seems like everyone is getting married. So let me go over some statistics to show you. According to the Pew Research Center in 1960, only 1 in 10 adults over the age of 25 hadn't been married. In 2012, that statistic changed to 1 in 5 adults over age 25 had never been married, equaling around 42 million people. So what exactly is going on? Why aren't people getting married? Researchers are looking at changing social and gender role trends for women. An article in a 2014 issue of the Family Journal stated that marriage has lost its functional meaning in certain ways. Shifts in the lifespan stages, especially for women, are causing women to get married later, if at all. And due in part to the women's liberation movement of the 60s and 70s, women are depending less and less on men for economic stability and seeing less need for marriage at all. So how is this playing out in our society? Well, the first way is through divorce. Though divorce rates are not nearly as severe as they were in the 70s and 80s, and many sources say that the divorce rate is declining, in actuality, it may simply be flattening, according to University of Michigan researchers who say we shouldn't be celebrating the end of divorce quite yet. A special note for us women is that 2/3 of divorces are initiated by women, likely because of the new expectations resulting, again, from the feminist movement in the 60s and 70s. This decline in marriage is having a psychological effect on people our age, and a researcher from the University of Virginia attributes this generation's fear of commitment to actually a fear of divorce. The second effect that is more prominent and developing is cohabitation, or living together instead of getting married. In 1960, approximately 450,000 couples were living together, and that number by 2012 had risen to 7.5 million, which is a 1,500% increase. Cohabitation has a major effect on marital instability, and after living together, people tend to have more positive views of cohabitation, but also more positive views of divorce. I once heard a Christian researcher say that cohabitation is like a never-ending job interview, and you never end up getting the job. In 2012, a New York Times article, psychologist Megan Jay noted that women are more likely to view cohabitation as a step into marriage, while men tend to view it as a way to test out the relationship or put off commitment. So why do we really even need marriage? Well, marriage is beneficial to society as a whole. From an economic perspective, the prime situation for raising children is a two-parent household, especially one where the father is present. The promotion of marriage can be beneficial in terms of racial equality. The Healthy Marriage Initiative, proposed in 2002 by the Administration for Children and Families, included specific programs for African Americans and Hispanics. We hear a lot about, as women, our need for independence. But for us ladies, the greater financial resources made available to us in marriage can reduce our stress levels. And cohabitation essentially involves sexual involvement with no formal commitment, but a 1992 National Health and Social Life Survey showed that the highest emotional and physical satisfaction with sex actually belonged within marriage. So, now, I know that none of you plan to become politicians or president or anything like that. So I'm not going to go in depth on policies and statistics about different pieces of marriage legislation, though we will cover that really quickly. What I'm going to do is propose to you how you yourselves in your personal relationships and in your future marriages can take personal action that will lead to strengthening marriage in this country. Because at the end of the day, the only thing that we can really control are our own personal actions. So the plan of action is simple here, ladies. We need to choose marriage over cohabitation. We need to stay true to our marriage vows, and while we're single, we need to support marriage in other ways that we can, such as promoting marriage through legislation that you can support or suggest. We need stricter divorce laws. We need to get rid of no-fault divorces, and we need to encourage covenant marriages, which is kind of a trend that's coming about that mandates premarital counseling before you could ever file and go through with a divorce, and we need to support marriage education programs. From a Christian perspective, the single best thing that you can do for your future marriage is maintain a close personal relationship with Jesus Christ. Marriage was created to be a picture of how much Christ loves the church, and when we deviate from that, it's no wonder that problems arise. Second, once you do get married, you might want to consider staying off Facebook. In 2010, 1 in 5 divorces had something major to do with Facebook. So, why choose marriage over cohabitation or singleness? Why is it important that our society values and esteems marriage? Well, in order to progress as a nation, the birth rate has to coincide with the death rate. We have to be replacing the people who died. It's just the life cycle. The U.S. isn't doing that well right now, coincidentally at a time when cohabitation is on the rise like never before. Birth rates among cohabitors are much lower than those in marital relationships. Marriage is also a public entity, so marriage benefits the general public by fostering community and social involvement. Marriage tends to lead to healthier and happier people. A committed partner provides emotional support that decreases mental health problems, and spouses also tend to aid in the early detection and treatment of physical diseases. Additionally, marriage tends to be associated with higher levels of happiness, substantially more than people who were never married or have been previously married. Now, let's take a moment to examine the positive results for us as a nation if we recommit to strengthening marriage and what the consequences if we don't. It's simple. A world with strong marriages leads to strong families, which leads to strong America. The effects of marriage now help determine the quality of life for the next generation. Children are more likely to succeed academically and socially, not abuse drugs and alcohol, or be raised in poverty. And children who witness conflict due to divorce tend to have negative views of marriage, while children who are in families with high integration tend to view marriage more positively. A well-documented benefit of marriage for individuals is that married people tend to live longer, healthier lives. And since the U.S. doesn't have a great birth rate right now, we really need people to be healthy and live longer lives to reproduce. Additionally, marriage can lead to more individual freedom. Jared Reifer, a cabinet secretary from Oklahoma, made the statement, "If you want strangers from the government to tell you when to see your child and how much money you should send them each month, how and when you communicate, and how to divide the assets of marriage, then file for divorce." Our country will be economically, socially, and emotionally weaker without a strong marital base. Robert Rector, a Heritage Foundation fellow, claimed in 2001 that the government spends $150 billion a year in subsidies to single parents, which is money that could have been avoided had the mom and dad stayed married. If you know anything about our national debt, you know that we simply can't afford that right now. Additionally, married men simply earn more than single men, some reports saying up to 11% more, and married people usually have greater wealth and assets. Now, that's not a superficial thing. In order for our economy to be healthy, we need people making and spending money. Failing marriages negatively affect the country emotionally and socially as well. Stronger commitment in marriage tends to inhibit aggression, while cohabitation, a looser commitment, may not. 14% of people who have a cohabiting arrangement say that they or their spouse hit, shoved, or threw things at their partner during the past year, compared to 5% of those who were formally married. And I think that we can all agree that trust is really needed in this country right now, and cohabitation doesn't breed a culture of trust and fidelity. Sexual exclusivity is substantially higher within marriage. I think I want to live in the world where marriage is strong. So in summary, today we looked at the problem of the declining state of marriage in the United States. I proposed a couple of solutions, and then we looked at a utopia and a dystopia. I leave you with a quote from Homer. "There is nothing nobler or more admirable than when two people who see eye to eye keep house as man and wife, confounding their enemies and delighting their friends. In conclusion, please take action to fight this valued institution put in place by God. Don't just live with your significant other, fight against divorce, and support marriage through any avenue possible.